3 weeks ago, I celebrated my 103rd birthday. Now, every time I say that number out loud, I have to smile a little. Because if you had met me a few years ago, you probably wouldn't have believed I'd make it this far. My name is Grace. I'm 103 years old. I still water the flowers in my little garden every morning. I still bake bread for my family on Sundays. And every evening, just before the sun goes down, I like to sit on the old wooden bench in my backyard with a warm cup of chamomile tea. Those quiet moments have become some of my favorite parts of the day. But there was a time, not very long ago, when I thought those simple pleasures might be slipping away from me. It didn't happen all at once. That's the frightening part. Kidney problems rarely arrive with loud warnings. They whisper. At first, I noticed I was more tired than usual. Not the kind of tired that disappears after a good night's sleep. This was different. I could fold half a basket of laundry and suddenly feel like I needed to sit down. I blamed my age. Well, at 103, that's an easy excuse to make. Then my ankles started swelling. My wedding ring felt tighter. Some mornings my face looked puffy when I glanced in the mirror. I told myself, it's probably just the weather. Again, I was wrong. My granddaughter kept telling me something wasn't right. "Grandma," she'd say, "you're slowing down." I'd smile and tell her, "Honey, I'm 103. I'm supposed to slow down." But deep inside, I knew my body was trying to tell me something. I just wasn't listening. One afternoon, after feeling unusually weak while watering my roses, my daughter insisted on taking me to the doctor. After several blood tests, my doctor came back into the room carrying a folder. He pulled up a chair beside me. He wasn't smiling. That made my heart sink. Then he gently said, "Grace, your kidneys are asking for help. Not failing, not beyond hope, but struggling." I remember staring at him for a moment. Then I asked, "What did I do wrong?" He reached over and patted my hand. "You didn't wake up one morning and damage your kidneys. This happened one small habit at a time." That sentence changed my life, because that's exactly how healing works too. One small habit at a time. I expected him to hand me a long list of expensive supplements, maybe some miracle powder I'd never heard of. Instead, he looked at me and said, "Grace, before we add anything to your life, let's talk about what needs to leave." That surprised me. Some of the things he mentioned had been in my kitchen for more than 70 years. Some reminded me of family dinners. Some reminded me of raising my children. Giving them up wasn't easy, but neither was the thought of losing my independence. And if I had to choose, I'd rather change my habits than lose the life I loved. Over the next several months, I slowly changed the way I ate, the way I drank water, and even the way I thought about my health. Little by little, my energy began to return. The swelling eased. My lab results improved. And perhaps most importantly, I stopped taking my kidneys for granted. Now, before I tell you what I changed, I need to say something important. I'm not your doctor. What helped me may not be exactly what your body needs. If you have kidney disease, diabetes, high blood pressure, or any medical condition, please work closely with your healthcare provider before making major changes. I'm simply an old grandmother sharing the lessons that helped me at 103. So, pour yourself a nice cup of tea, get comfortable, and let me tell you the simple changes that gave my kidneys the wake-up call they had been asking for all along. The very first thing I changed was something so simple I almost laughed when my doctor mentioned it. Water. Not fancy water, not expensive water, just plain old water. Now, before you click away thinking, "Grace, I already know I should drink more water," please stay with me, because that's exactly what I thought too, and I was still getting it wrong. For years, I drank whenever I felt thirsty. That seemed perfectly reasonable. After all, that's what thirst is for, isn't it? Well, not always. My doctor explained that as we get older, our sense of thirst becomes quieter. It's almost like an old doorbell with weak batteries. Sometimes it rings, sometimes it doesn't. But that doesn't mean nobody's standing at the door. He looked at me and asked, "Grace, how much water do you think you drink in a day?" I shrugged. "Oh, enough, I suppose." Then he smiled. "Let's find out." So the next day, I kept track. 1 cup with breakfast, a little tea in the afternoon, maybe a few sips with supper. By bedtime, I realized I'd hardly had any plain water at all. I wasn't dehydrated because I was careless. I was dehydrated because I simply forgot. My doctor explained something I'll never forget. He said, "Think of your kidneys like the filters in your kitchen. If clean water flows through them regularly, they do their job beautifully. But if there's not enough water, they have to work much harder to clean everything." Now, I'm no doctor, but I have cleaned enough coffee filters in my lifetime to understand exactly what he meant. A dry filter doesn't work very well. Neither do tired kidneys. So I didn't force myself to drink gallons of water. That would have been miserable. Instead, I created little reminders. Every morning after making my bed, I'd drink 1 glass. Before going out to water my roses, another small glass. Before lunch, a few more sips. Nothing dramatic, just gentle little habits scattered throughout my day. I even bought myself a pretty blue glass, not because it was magical, because every time I saw it sitting on the kitchen counter, it reminded me, "Oh, that's right, my kidneys are waiting." Funny how something so small can make such a big difference. Now, let me tell you something important. Drinking more water isn't the right answer for everyone. Some people with heart failure or advanced kidney disease are actually told to limit how much fluid they drink. That's why it's so important to follow your own doctor's advice. I'm only sharing what helped me. Within a couple of weeks, I noticed I wasn't waking up with such a dry mouth. The headaches I'd been blaming on old age became less frequent. I had a little more energy in the afternoons. Even my skin didn't feel quite as dry. Little improvements, nothing spectacular. But healing often whispers, long before it shouts. That experience taught me something. Sometimes we wait for a miracle, when our body is simply asking us to pay attention. And paying attention may be one of the greatest acts of self-care there is. But water wasn't the biggest surprise. The next thing my doctor asked me to change was sitting in my kitchen every single day. I honestly thought it was helping my health. Instead, it had been quietly making my kidneys work much harder than they needed to. The second thing I changed was something I thought I'd been doing right for years: salt. Or maybe I should say, too much of it. Now, I wasn't the kind of person who covered every meal with a mountain of salt. In fact, I hardly used the salt shaker at all. So when my doctor mentioned sodium, I smiled and said, "Oh, I don't think that's my problem." He smiled right back. Then he asked, "Grace, Where do you think most people get their salt? I pointed toward the little shaker sitting in the middle of my kitchen table. He gently shook his head. Not anymore. That surprised me. He explained that most of the sodium we eat isn't sprinkled on at home. It's already hidden inside the food before we ever bring it through the front door. Canned soups, frozen dinners, deli meats, boxed macaroni and cheese, crackers, even some breakfast cereals. I couldn't believe it. When I got home, I opened my pantry and started reading labels. 1 can of soup, nearly a whole day's worth of sodium. A frozen meal, even more. I stood there in my kitchen talking to myself. Well, Grace, no wonder your poor kidneys are working overtime. My doctor explained it in the simplest way. He said, imagine you're carrying 2 heavy buckets of water. Now imagine someone quietly pours another cup into each bucket. You might not notice at first, but then another cup, and another. Eventually, the weight becomes too much. He looked at me kindly and said, too much sodium can make your body hold on to extra fluid. That means your kidneys and your heart have to work even harder. That image stayed with me because I'd carried enough heavy buckets in my lifetime to know exactly how exhausting that becomes. So I made another little change. Instead of reaching for canned soup, I started making my own vegetable soup, a big pot every Sunday afternoon. I'd fill it with carrots, celery, onions, garlic, fresh herbs from my garden, and whatever vegetables were in season. Then I'd freeze small portions. Every time I warmed up a bowl, I knew exactly what was inside. No guessing, no surprises. And you know something? It tasted better too. Real food has a way of reminding you what food is supposed to taste like. After a few weeks, something wonderful happened. The swelling around my ankles became noticeably smaller. My shoes felt comfortable again by the end of the day. Even my fingers didn't feel so puffy when I slipped my rings on each morning. Those little victories meant the world to me. Now, I don't want anyone to think salt is the enemy. Our bodies actually need some sodium. The problem is that many of us have been eating far more than we realize for many, many years. It's not about removing every grain. It's about letting your kidneys breathe a little easier. Looking back, I wasn't trying to become perfect. I was simply trying to stop making my kidneys fight battles they didn't need to fight. And once I understood that, every trip to the grocery store became a little different. The third change my doctor suggested was the one I resisted the most, because it involved one of my favorite sweet little habits, something I enjoyed almost every single afternoon with a cup of tea. I kept telling myself, it's only a little treat, but my kidneys saw it very differently. The third thing I changed, oh my, this one was hard, because it involved one of my favorite little afternoon traditions. Cookies, cake, sweet pastries, sometimes a slice of pie if there happened to be one left over. Now, I wasn't eating a whole cake, just a little something with my afternoon tea. I'd tell myself, Grace, you've earned it. After all, I'd already lived more than 100 years. Surely one little cookie couldn't matter that much. My doctor wasn't trying to take away my happiness. He wasn't the kind of man to say, never eat dessert again. Instead, he asked me a question. Grace, do you know why your kidneys don't like too much sugar? I shook my head. Then he reached for a flower pot sitting by the window. It had a beautiful little fern growing in it. He smiled and said, imagine watering this plant with sweet syrup instead of water. It might look fine for a little while, but sooner or later, the roots would begin to struggle. The soil wouldn't stay healthy. The whole plant would have to work harder just to survive. He looked at me and said, "Our bodies are a little like that. Too much added sugar over many years can affect blood sugar levels, increase the risk of diabetes, and put extra stress on organs that were never designed to handle it. And your kidneys, they're one of those organs." That explanation stayed with me because I'd spent years taking care of my garden. Healthy roots, healthy plant. Healthy kidneys, healthier body. When I got home, I opened the cookie jar. I just stood there looking at it. Can you believe that? An old woman having a staring contest with a cookie jar. For a moment, I almost reached inside. Then I quietly closed the lid. Not because cookies are evil, because I finally understood they weren't helping the part of me that needed help the most. Now, I didn't stop enjoying something sweet altogether. I simply changed what sweet meant. Instead of 2 cookies, I'd slice up an apple. Sometimes I'd have a handful of fresh berries. Other days, a few slices of pear with a small handful of unsalted almonds. And every now and then, I'd enjoy a square of dark chocolate after supper, slowly, without guilt. Funny enough, the more I stopped eating overly sweet foods, the sweeter real fruit began to taste. It was almost like my taste buds had been asleep for years and finally woke up. About a month later, I went back for another checkup. My doctor smiled before he even sat down. That's always a good sign. He looked at my latest blood work and said, "Grace, keep doing what you're doing. Your kidneys are thanking you." Those may have been the simplest words he ever spoke to me, but they filled my heart with hope. Hope is a wonderful medicine. It reminds you that your body is still willing to heal if you're willing to help it. But there was one more change, and honestly, I think it made the biggest difference of all. It didn't come from my kitchen. It didn't come from a grocery store. It came from something I had been forgetting to do for far too many years, simply slowing down. The last change I made didn't come from my kitchen. It didn't come from a bottle, and it certainly didn't cost a penny. It came from learning how to slow down. Now, if you've spent your whole life taking care of other people, you know exactly what I'm talking about. For years, I was always doing something: cooking, cleaning, folding laundry, helping the grandchildren, pulling weeds in the garden. If I sat down for more than 10 minutes, I'd start feeling guilty, as though resting meant I was being lazy. One afternoon, after another doctor's visit, I mentioned how exhausted I felt. I said, "Doctor, I don't understand. I'm eating better. I'm drinking more water, so why do I still feel so tired sometimes?" He looked at me for a moment, then he smiled. "Grace, when was the last time you truly rested?" I almost answered right away, then I stopped, because I honestly couldn't remember. He explained something I'd never really considered. When we're under constant stress, our bodies release hormones that prepare us for danger. That's helpful if you're running from a fire, but not if you're worrying every day. He told me that ongoing stress can affect blood pressure, sleep, and overall health, all of which can make life harder for kidneys that are already working overtime. It wasn't about pretending life was perfect. It was about giving my body permission to recover. So I made one final promise to myself. Every afternoon, I'd spend 20 quiet minutes doing absolutely nothing productive. No dishes, no sweeping, no organizing. I'd simply sit on the old wooden bench beneath the maple tree in my backyard. I'd hold a warm cup of chamomile tea, listen to the birds, watch the breeze move through the flowers, and thank God for another day. At first, it felt strange. I kept thinking, Grace, you should be inside folding those towels. But the towels could wait. My health couldn't. Little by little, those quiet moments became my favorite part of the day. I slept more peacefully. I worried less. I smiled more. And somehow, everything else became a little easier to carry. Looking back now, my kidneys gave me something I didn't know I needed. A wake-up call. Not a punishment. A reminder that growing older doesn't mean giving up. It means paying closer attention to your body, to your habits, to the little whispers before they become loud cries for help. At 103, I've learned that our bodies are wonderfully patient. They work for us every minute of every day. Our heart keeps beating, our lungs keep breathing, our kidneys quietly clean our blood without asking for applause. The least we can do is take care of them in return. People sometimes ask me, Grace, do you ever miss the old way of eating? Of course I do. Sometimes I still think about those buttery biscuits my mother used to bake, or the cookies I'd enjoy with my afternoon tea. Those memories will always make me smile. But I've learned something. The love wasn't in the cookie. The love was in the people I shared it with. And those memories, no one can ever take away. If you're watching this today and you've recently been told your kidneys aren't as healthy as they used to be, please don't lose hope. One test result isn't the end of your story. It might just be the beginning of a better chapter. You don't have to change everything overnight. That's not what I did. I simply made one small change, then another, and another, until those little choices became my new normal. So tomorrow morning, drink a glass of water, read one nutrition label, take a gentle walk if your doctor says it's safe, sit quietly for a few minutes. Give your body a little kindness. After all, it's been taking care of you for your entire life. Before I go, I'd love to know something about you. How young are you today? And where in the world are you watching from? I always enjoy reading your stories. They remind me that no matter where we live, we're all hoping for the very same thing. A few more healthy mornings, a few more laughs with the people we love, and a few more chances to watch another beautiful sunrise. Thank you for spending these moments with me. Take good care of yourself, and don't wait for your body to shout when it's already been whispering.